Welcome to Feeling Asian, a podcast where two Asians talk about their feelings. I'm Young Mi Mayer.
And I'm Brian Park.
Today we have an exceptional guest, like always, who is also Asian, like always.
Well, like always, except for one guest.
Oh, we did have one white guest.
The very special and honorable John DeBerry.
But that's not today.
Not today.
Never again. I'm just kidding.
But yes, Young Mi is correct. We have an incredible and exceptional guest this week for you all. But before we introduce them, let's do Patreon shoutouts.
Yeah, as you know, if you like our podcast, you can subscribe to our Patreon for bonus weekly episodes on Sunday, where it's just me and Brian talking about shit that we don't understand.
And if you like the podcast, support us.
Why
it's
not?
How we keep the lights on this dang ol' operation.
Yeah.
I don't know why I said dang ol' operation.
I don't know. What's
I don't
going
know.
on?
What's going on?
John was possessed by a ghost of like a gold miner. What?
That was really weird. But yeah, if you want to subscribe and support the podcast, you can do so at patreon.com/feelingasian. Let's get to the fun part.
Did I just call you John?
You called me John.
I did. Okay. I
Wow.
thought so.
Vibes are
good.
catastrophic right now.
Wow, we're really high on mushrooms. I don't know what's going on. Okay.
But
yeah.
any donation amount, listeners, gets you a positive affirmation on the podcast.
Yep.
So let's do it, Young Mi.
Okay, I'm
First
ready.
shout out goes out to Evan Danielson.
Evan Danielson is extremely clean in the kitchen.
Next shout out goes out to Nina Pogorzelski. Nina, you are a tremendous leader and you are loved.
Do you think these are just like weird projections of things that we want for ourselves? I feel like that sometimes. That's the next one.
This is one of those things where if we think about it too much, we might spiral. Next shout out goes out to Megan McFarland.
Your mom is nice to you.
Caroline Lung. Caroline, you have the best style at the university you attend.
Yeah, I feel that.
Big
Psychic
pull.
vibes coming in.
Next shout out goes out to Mia Vo.
Mia Vo, this is the highest compliment you could ever receive. I feel like you're a Sagittarius.
Next shout out goes out to Hyunju Lee. Hyunju, you are the number one resource for all your friends on what to do when friends are visiting, because you just have a pulse on the city and you know what's up.
Yeah.
All the time. Next shout out goes out to Rachel Tang.
Rachel Tang is rich. Is that an affirmation? I don't know.
Hey, that's a positive affirmation, baby.
That's the most Asian positive affirmation.
Our next shout out goes out to Stella H. Kim. Stella, you handle spicy food better than all of your friends.
Yeah, I feel that. I feel like you're right on the money today, Brian.
I'm locked in.
Yeah.
Our next shout out goes out to Harry Monroe.
Harry Monroe has a very, beloved by his community. I'm lost.
Last shout out for this episode, Nicole Kim. Nicole, you're just really freaking hot.
Here he goes again, everyone. Here Brian goes again. Just horny for no reason.
For no goddamn reason at all. Actually, horny because we have so many wonderful Patreon subscribers, and I'm touched, and thank you for supporting the podcast, everyone.
He's touched, not in a weird way.
Oh God. Once again, you can support the podcast at patreon.com/feelingasian. Now that we have our shout outs out of the way, Young Mi, I think it's time to introduce our wonderful guest this week.
Oh my God, I'm really excited.
Do you want to do the honors?
Sure. So this week we have a very special guest. Brian always introduced the guest, but I think, he knows that I'm very excited, so he's giving me the honor. The guest this week is an extremely brilliant and hilarious comedian and writer. You might have seen her on the internet, where she is the queen. Also, she got a 10 out of 10 on Room Rater, and you know how much that means to everybody. Everyone give us your ears for Jenny Yang.
Thank you for having me. I'm feeling very Asian today. Thank you.
You are? Do you feel Asian every day, or is it today in particular?
Today in particular because of the two of you. I'm just glad that we've been able to all connect and talk. I've been getting to know the both of you and your work, and it's just super fun that we get to finally meet, at least virtually.
Yeah, this is really exciting. It's so weird now that, like, I mean, especially I feel like because you also have a large internet presence. And so it's so weird when you, like, meet people now because it's like, I kind of know everything about you.
I mean,
right?
I do talk a lot about my personal life.
Right.
That is part of why I got into this gig. Listen, when you grow up repressing everything, that's why you become an artist.
Yes, I definitely feel that. Definitely feel that. Brian's still in the repressing stage. He'll get where we are soon, I think.
You'll get there, Brian.
We'll get there. I feel it. I feel the shell cracking.
Yeah, we're getting to know Brian finally.
Jenny, we're so excited to have you on the podcast. And for our listeners who like to watch on YouTube, let's take a moment and really appreciate Jenny's 10 out of 10 Zoom setup.
Look.
Because it is...
Wow.
Vibes are immaculate.
Yeah, if you're only listening to the audio, you're really missing out. This is a 10 out of 10 room if I've ever seen one.
Oh, 100%. And Jenny's glowing through the screen.
Yeah, there's like
it's a lot of blush.
Skin popping, hair
poppin'.
looking amazing.
We're here for
it.
To all the YouTube people, I hope you can forgive me when for a moment I forgot that I was being recorded, and while you were doing the Patreon shout outs, I had a yawn happen. It does not reflect on how I feel about the situation.
Oh no, you were yawning while we were trying to do jokes.
Wouldn't be the first time that happened to us.
We're so funny with our dumb Patreon shout.
No, it has nothing to do with present company. I thought I was off camera, so to speak. It's because I haven't been sleeping well this week. I'm already going into your first question, which is usually how I'm feeling.
However,
oh no,
Jenny,
the
hold that
sleeping
thought.
well.
Before we ask you how you're feeling, now we're gonna put a pin in that. Young man, I'm gonna ask you how you're feeling.
Yeah, this is well, I guess Jenny was saying, feeling sleepy.
You're feeling sleepy right now.
I'm feeling sleepy right now. No, there's no air in this room. We have to turn the air conditioner off. No, I feel like my sleep has been am I sleepy or am I suffocating? I'm not sure. I feel like my sleep's been kind of messed up, and that's really, I always bring this up. It's little things if I don't eat well or if I'm not drinking enough water, it's my entire life just goes off the fucking rails. You know?
There's only two feelings you have, especially on this podcast, Young. It's either you're not drinking enough water and you're mildly uncomfortable, or you're on the verge of a mental breakdown.
Yeah, I think it's both this week. Both. I'm I don't even know. I feel... Okay, I'll tell you the overarching feeling that I've been having recently is, and it's one that never goes away. I just feel like I'm not doing enough. Fucking anxiety, because I feel like my life is slipping through my fingers, which somehow leads me to doing less and catatonically lying in bed and absolutely not doing anything for hours. And then my dishes are in the sink since Tuesday, and you know what I mean? And the laundry's not folded. And then it's so weird because, half the week I have my son, I co-parent him. And then during that time, it's just keeping him alive is 100% of my energy. And then he goes to his dad, and I'm I'm looking at the I got to fold these fucking sheets. But then I'm when he goes to his dad's, I'm going to fold the fucking sheets, you know?
Yeah.
And then he goes to his dad's, and then I lay down for 85 hours. And then I realize I have to pick him up again. It's literally 85 hours of straight laying down. And the sheets it would take maybe 3 minutes. It would take maybe 3 minutes to fold the sheets.
Oh, yeah.
And then I spiral about the fact that I am worthless and have done nothing. That's been such a big, I guess that's always in the back of my mind, but it's been recently.
I feel that.
Yeah.
When you're in that state, whether it is something as simple as, picking up a single stray sock and putting it into the laundry, or
I can't.
or you have to type up a 150-page dissertation. They're both equally difficult.
I can't do it. And I feel if I could just I feel like if I could overcome this thing, I could do everything I've ever wanted to do in my entire life in maybe 3 days. Like I could write a book, like shoot a movie, write an hour comedy special. I could do that in 3 days if I just could just like pick up that one sock. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Oh,
but I
100%.
can't. I cannot.
Wow. So,
Yeah.
maybe the children's story of the tortoise and the hare. The tortoise was in fact just suffering from severe
anxiety
and depression.
It wasn't that the tortoise was slow. He's just as fast as the rabbit. He was lying down for the first hour of the race, and then he got up and caught up to the rabbit and then beat the rabbit.
But
that's my story.
That's your story, and in the end, you're gonna cross that finish line, and you're gonna win.
Okay, I believe in that. Kind of. Thank you, Brian. That made me feel better. I'm gonna do everything that I've wanted to do in my entire life in like one weekend, I think. Right? I feel like when I'm 57 years old, I'm gonna write the book in a 2-day period. I have to say this is. I remembered an inspirational story because I feel like a lot of people probably go through what I just explained.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I heard. Okay, I didn't know this, but I forgot who it was. I'm pretty sure it was Vincent Van Gogh. I hope this is who it was. It was one of those famous.
Said Vincent Van Gogh.
It was definitely Vincent Van Gogh.
Pull up your MacBooks and your iPhones.
Okay, you can
right
fact
now.
check this now. I'm not gonna do it. I'm lazy. I have to go lay down some more after this. Vincent Van Gogh had some sort of like manic. This is me diagnosing him. Had like some sort of manic episode.
He did cut off his ears. So,
yeah. So
the facts check out right now.
This checks out. So he rented this like cottage. I feel like Jenny's looking this up. He rented this cottage like somewhere in France, right?
Okay.
And then in all of the paintings that we've ever seen, the famous paintings, he did in like 8 weeks over the course of like a summer or a winter or something during this little sabbatical.
Right.
This little artist retreat. It was 80 days. 80 days. He painted every single famous painting that we know. The sunflowers, the starry night. And so when I saw that, I was like, see? I was like, you know what? I'm going to lay down for a few more months and then I will do it.
Yeah.
In April, if there'll be a 40-day stretch where I finish everything that I want to do, including the dishes.
Let's go.
That's my inspiring story for everybody.
And I also think that checks out. I'm pretty sure it's Vincent Van Gogh.
Yeah, it was. I just had a brain fart. It was him because I saw this movie.
I know Jackson Pollock did something similar like that too. Like all of his splatter paintings are just from really
like 2
concise
weekends.
period of time.
So if anyone's listening, and I feel like a lot of I'm pretty sure that Jenny probably understands this feeling too. I feel like creativity isn't because a lot of times what I do to myself is like I'm gonna write for 30 minutes, 3 hours a day or whatever.
Yeah.
But for my brain doesn't work like that. It's nothing. It's nothing for 8 years.
Yeah.
And then 2 days of something.
Oh my
and then
God.
8 more years of nothing. So I have to be okay with that, I guess. That's how I'm feeling. How are you feeling, Brian?
I'm feeling similar yet kind of the opposite in that this week has been really hard for me because I've been having a lot of panic attacks. And it sucks.
No.
I've had 3 panic attacks this week, like debilitating, where I was on the verge of going to the hospital, and I just knew I was just so distressed. And but right now, these past 2 weeks have been really busy for me. Like, and I think I'm just burned out.
Yeah,
I'm burned out. So right now, I had nothing for a year, and then all of a sudden, these 2 weeks have been the fucking goddamn busiest 2 weeks of my freaking life, and I'm just burned out. I think like 4 days ago I had a night off and I just cried because I'm like I need a fucking vacation. Like everything was just piling up and my brain just would not shut off, and I was just thinking about what's the next project, what do I have to do, I have to write this, I have to prepare for this script, and it was just way too much. And it's been really hard, and I've been feeling really overwhelmed. And maybe as of a day ago, things have... I feel like I'm in my body again. Mm-hmm. But, man, it was hard this week. I was going at 150 miles per hour, and, like, it's just weird. Like, when you're busy and you're in it, you don't really think, and you're just working, and you're trying to do your best to fulfill whatever the project is at that moment. And that just hit me like a semi-truck. Like I was in my room, I just like, it was just too much. I was just burned out, too overwhelmed.
Ugh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I know
remember,
that sucks.
Yeah, thank you. No, I mean, not thank you, but like, no, I appreciate
Sorry.
you all like just letting me vent and get that off my chest.
Yeah,
I'm on the mend now, but this week was really hard for a different reason, like I mentioned. Like, it was just like too much, you know? I just wish, that's the thing with creative work. Like, why can't these things, you know, it would be nice to have like, pace it out, like space it out where you can have a life and fulfill this, like, you know, do your creative project, but instead everything has to happen, like, be just fucking jammed into 2 weeks, and you're gonna sleep like shit, and you're gonna have way too much to do, and
yeah, that's rough. Because Brian was telling me that he had a few jobs, and they seemed like very. Also, I feel like they're very time consuming. They take a long time. Like, he goes in for a long time.
Yeah.
But also, I think there's another thing about creative work, that it's like tiring in this other kind of way.
Yeah.
Because for me, it fucks with me in terms of self-value. Like, do I deserve to do this? And there's a lot of mental fucking weird shit that's happening.
Right.
And self-consciousness and imposter syndrome. I don't know for you, but like, there's a lot of mental anguish that comes along with it. Whereas if I like work at a restaurant, which, you know, I've done for years, I'm just like, am I gonna do this? I don't care about this, whatever. Right. So yeah, I'm sorry to hear that.
No, it's, yeah.
I know you texted me about it, and I didn't understand that it was like to this extent. You told me you were having like an anxiety attack or something.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I was like, it was a hard week, and
Yikes.
my anxiety was through the roof, and you know, thankfully I have friends I can lean on who can just like listen and.
Yeah, what do you do during that time? Like when that's happening to you?
Well, that's the thing is, I don't know. Like I just try to focus on, like yesterday I made a point to exercise and like play tennis. For that stretch of stretch of time where I was really busy and feeling really anxious and not myself, I wasn't doing any exercise or physical activity, and I think for me, that's what grounds me and sort of helps me release like this pent up energy in a healthy way. Whereas if I don't have something active to do, I just channel that into it just gets channeled into neuroses and like self analyzation and feeling like I don't have enough time to do everything I need to do, and then I just fall off the wagon, and it's just not good. Yeah, but I feel better now, thankfully, and I've been eating mad kimchi because that helps me feel better. And I know, like, I'm all about gut health now. We've talked about it on the podcast, like all the probiotics. Like, I swear it is a salve for my anxiety.
Yeah.
So, kimchi and tennis is the cure.
Wow, that's a really Korean cure for depression. So Koreans were right all along. Kimchi and going outside and running around is the cure to depression.
But Jenny, sorry to interrupt you earlier. How are you feeling?
No. How am I feeling? Well, I think the best way to sum it up is this week was tough because my dad, who's very old, he's 94, he has been dealing with dementia for a while, and he's deteriorated a lot. And so earlier this week, we finally made the tough decision to like get everything in order so that we could move him out of the house, away from my mom and my brother and my nephew, to go to a home, to go to like an assisted living nursing home. I don't even know what category this is, but it was really tough on the family because, once you get that old, I mean, brother is 94, you know what I mean? He's lived a good life. He's barely there now. There's moments, but so we just, the care for him became too much. And so we're happy. I'm happy that it gives my mom a lot of relief and rest because she's the main caretaker of him. But now we're just like processing all these emotions and all the trauma of like, constantly sort of grieving my dad. And so, yeah, this week was like weird. It's like he's still alive, but it's like another phase in the grieving process of who he was and what he is now. And so I don't know what happens to you when you grieve, or like say when you go through like a big breakup or something. When I have a lot of grief, like a release of grief, it's not only just sadness, but it's like I get kind of anxious. Like I'll like not sleep well. I get like just like terrible sleep. And so that's what happened this week. I was just like, oh, I'm so sad all day. And then, fielding phone calls with my mom or visiting them and all this stuff. And so it's just been heavy. But, the night that he was getting moved out, I actually didn't cancel on this like free sort of patio comedy show that was happening here in LA. And it was the best decision, even though I kind of wanted to cancel because I got to like kind of get the good energy from people and tell them exactly what was happening. And I wrote like a couple of dumb jokes about it. And it was good. It was good. So I'm feeling like I'm healing, but still in the middle of a process.
Wow. That's so tough.
It's so hard, guys. I've been posting about it, and so I've been getting so many messages of people like, oh my God, me too, my dad, my grandpa, my grandma, my uncle,
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us during this time. But I guess it makes sense, like what you were saying about the patio comedy show. It's just like, I've heard that it's helpful for people to keep busy too,
Sometimes, it's like a balance, it's like, what do I keep, what do I not keep? And so, I'm excited we figured a time out for this.
Wow, that's like so intense. I'm sorry to hear that.
I'm sorry.
Thanks, guys. It is intense.
Man.
Y'all, it doesn't help when like, I don't know, do you guys follow Lori Kilmartin?
Oh,
Lori Kilmartin.
Her mom just passed.
Yeah.
Right. Yep.
Her mom relatively recently passed because of COVID. Before that, her father had passed from like cancer or something.
My God.
And she live tweeted her dad's death essentially. And then she live tweeted her mom passing away during COVID because she was mad about people who didn't want to like follow safety. And it is dark. It is so funny. And I definitely I'm not equipped to do what she does, but it did make me think a lot about, how just hilarious she was able to be in the midst of so much like anguish and pain. And a big part of her comedy around her parents is the fact that she has a favorite, that, one parent, like her dad, she had a tough relationship with her dad. And so she would make jokes like, why wouldn't you just take him and or mom, she had a tough relationship with her mom, and it's like, why don't you just take her instead of him? Shit like that,
God.
where it's like,
Nice.
where you're like, oh my God, she's saying it,
She's
and
saying
it's like fucked up, but like so real, And so I have a really tough, my whole family has a really tough relationship with my dad, and so for him to be so frail and still sort of very much an asshole, even during dementia, it's like, but we love him and we want him to not suffer. And so it's like, a lot of conflicting emotions, a lot of conflicting feelings.
I think you just described the relationship that most Asian people have with their parents so perfectly. It's like, we have a hard time with them, but we love them and we don't want them to be, in pain, and we care deeply about them. And it's like, the most important people in our lives to a lot of us. So I'm so sorry. Also, I want to just mention that I'm glad that you mentioned the Lori Kilmartin thing, because I think a lot of people, we all have different relationships to social media and sharing information. And I think a lot of people look at people like Lori who are like quote unquote oversharers in a negative light. But the fact that you were seeing that and that was helpful for you when you were going through something similar. And I think so there are a lot of like, pluses and minuses to being to different levels of interacting online. And I think people should always remember that. So I'm glad you said that.
For sure.
Right.
But thank you so much for joining us, and I'm so excited to talk to you. It's been a long time. We've been trying to work out a schedule. I know you're very busy.
Yeah, and then a thing called a pandemic sort of threw a wrench into things.
It was a little weird. It's a little crunchy in the last 18 months. I'm not gonna lie.
Right. But yeah, Jenny. So you obviously Youngie and I, we're familiar with your work through your online presence, and your comedy is often political and dissects issues surrounding the Asian American identity. And I'm wondering, has your comedy always centered on these topics? And if not, what was your journey into diving into these themes?
Oh, I talk about these things, but I also talk about other things. I just think it depends. Like I've talked about all these things the entire time, so I don't think anything has truly evolved. You know, my first career was in politics. Like my first mission in life that I realized very early on was to, you know, be like, I want to change the world kind of person, you know? So I think what my values are has been locked in for a long time. And so the moment I decided I wanted to pursue stand-up comedy or comedy, it just felt natural for me to just have my comedy be an extension of these values. And that includes, you know, talking about dating and relationships and my family and I don't know, maybe what's happening out in the world, you know, but but for sure, because my family is Taiwanese or Chinese and Asian, then therefore it is obviously about my identity. I'm also just very influenced by being active on campus in college and being influenced by ethnic studies and Asian American studies. And so that's always going to come in, you know what I mean, to what I talk about. So to answer your question, I'd say that, you know, my comedy hasn't really evolved. It's always been this way.
Yeah.
Right.
And I don't mean to be reductive. Obviously your comedy covers a huge swath of topics and sources from your life, but my experience with your Twitter account is you are you're not afraid to get political. And when, let's say, if there is something that occurs that is specific to the Asian American diaspora, you will, and I love you for this, like you are not afraid to speak out and say what's on your mind. And it's often, before I've even formed an opinion, I'll sometimes just be like, okay, I want to see what Jenny has to say.
Wait, what does Jenny think? What's Jenny?
No, but your Twitter is very your Twitter is very influential in this way though, because I feel like it has it incites a lot of public discourse, and you aren't afraid to get political.
Yeah, and you know what? For people like Brian, I love a malleable mind. You know what I mean? I love a malleable mind.
Don't we all? We love people like sheep. You know what I mean? I'm just kidding.
I have opinions. I have opinions. I want people to think just like me. Okay? No,
Same.
I mean, I take that as a compliment. I have realized that, you know, and we all work in the performing arts as writers and as performers, and so, you know, we probably are of the percentage of whoever our cohort was growing up that probably liked words and, you know, was more verbal. And so I very early on realized that I'm able to put into words maybe something that others generally might not feel like they could as quickly put into words. And so that I appreciate that. And I think especially when it comes to really hard issues that happen in the world, like when, you know, the shootings happened in the Atlanta spas, you know, I know that like I felt it in my gut the way a lot of people did. And I think I have learned that one way for me to process my own emotions is to express them through words. And whether that was journaling or that's performing right now as a comedian. And so, I feel like I was able to probably express a feeling that a lot of people were having, but just didn't have either the wherewithal or the energy to like say. So yeah, I think that's just an example of like something I've realized that is like something that I could do to serve and help others if I can express something that helps to clarify what they're feeling.
I have to say that I'm hearing that you're like naturally gifted in like formulating thoughts and expressing them through language. For me, that I had to learn how to do that. I feel like as a comedian, like I feel like my brain was just like a jumble of fucking dumpster, like garbage just swirling around. And so I feel like when I started doing comedy, you know, like when you start doing stand up and you're like, people are gonna think this is great. And I got on stage and I was like, I'm not making any sense. And so it's like, I'm like, finally I know how to say things in front of people. But that's really important that you said that, because that is a gift, you know, whether you're like that you're inclined to it or, you know, I feel like learn it through practice like I did. It's just, I now recognize how much of a talent and skill that is, whereas before I didn't really realize how important it is. Because there are, you know, like I say this all the time, there are people that are way funnier than I am, and there are people that are way smarter than I am, but it's like you really there's no skill in how to communicate that to people, or they're not focusing on that, and they don't see that as like part of it, you know.
I would say I relate to you a bit more, Youngmi, in that I had to learn how to like own my opinions and be comfortable sharing them in a public arena, because I don't know, from a young age my dad always like packaged these Korean proverbs and would just say things like, the quietest one is the most intelligent, and I would like take that with me to the point where I'm like, oh, I don't even know what I think. I'm just sitting and being quiet and
what's up with
just being frustrated because I'm not voicing anything.
What is up with Korean parents, or I guess all Asian parents? My mom had so many sayings like that. One of them was, the emptiest can makes the loudest noise. And then the other one was,
that is true. That's a banger right there.
That's a banger. and then so I feel like I had to fight that for so long, because I was like, oh, if I say anything, they're gonna think I'm a fucking idiot and I'm like really arrogant or something. But I was like, no, you know what? I am right, and your opinions are bad.
Yeah.
And mine are great. No, they're not. But you know what? I'm gonna tell you them anyway.
Yeah, I think it's a matter of learning for everyone. It was a matter of learning for me. It's just a matter of when, right? So, you know, for me in high school, I, you know, had like formative experiences. I was a very big student government nerd, and it was like leadership, and we were very active, and you know, went to like leadership training programs, and it's like leadership. It's like, okay, great. All my friends are the popular kids. What is this for? And I remember realizing this. I'm like, leadership is a tool. It's not an end in of itself. It's like you're just striving for power. What's that for? What are you using that power for? And it wasn't until I got to college, which is a very, you know, tiny, small liberal arts college called Swarthmore outside of Philadelphia, that
I applied there. Didn't get in.
It's fine. There's so many other good schools, but that, you know, it wasn't until I went to college that I realized what these leadership skills that I was learning was for.
Right.
Which is, I have these life experiences that have informed a set of values that I would like to see in the world, because I don't believe what the world is right now is the way it should be. And so, you know, I learned words like oppression and hegemony, and you know what all the racism is, and so I think, you know, my training ground for existentially believing I had a right to an opinion was in college. You know, because I was hanging out with all these very privileged, mostly white kids of professors, frankly. They're like Harvard professor kids. They're like, you know, DC lobbyist K Street kids. They're, you know what I mean? They went to prep school, all these things. And I remember going freshman year at Swarthmore, sitting in class and seeing these other white kids who are freshmen like me, talking exactly like the professor. I'm like, how do you know how to talk like this? This doesn't make any sense to me. And, you know, when we're writing essays, it was like, you need to form your opinion. This is your opinion, synthesizing all of these things. It was just a different level of belief in the importance of your independent thought that I did not experience in my very big public high school. That was very good, but it was more like follow the rules and you'll get an A.
Right. Yeah. That is like that. I'm really glad that you put it that way. It's like these two separate skills, you know, like you do have to have the skill of like speaking your mind and being very direct, and like whatever thought you have, communicating it like precisely with your words. And then there's another skill of like for realizing, getting in touch with what is important to you as a human being, and knowing, you know, like I think this is really important for joke writing too, because I see a lot of people writing jokes without realizing what's actually important to them. They're almost like writing. It's almost like you're growing a tree from the leaves without any roots or a foundation. It's like you have to know who you are and what you think is important and how you see the world, and then you build your, not only your thoughts, but your jokes from that. Like your jokes have to come from a very secure place. Like for me, I think about this all the time. Like I'm very like anti-racism. So it's like so I'm never gonna have a joke that's like, you know, maybe sometimes I won't think about something and it'll be offensive, obviously, like a mistake. But like if any joke that I'm really behind and I really love, it's gonna come from this place that's like very solid in my belief system. You know what I mean? And I feel like it's important that you said that. It's very important.
I mean, it's just a practice of being any artist, is you just have to consume a lot of art. And like you said, Jenny, from that, then you synthesize all that and then create your own opinion. And I think through there is like, what is your voice? How do you
your voice.
distinguish yourself from any other comedian? And
what's your point of view?
right.
But it's like, but being raised in an immigrant Taiwanese Chinese family, that was not an important thing to do.
No.
Gather round, children. Here is space for you. You, Jenny, what do you feel right now? What is your opinion of everything? No one did that.
No. As soon as I said something, my mom was like, the loudest can, the emptiest can makes the loudest noise.
Yeah.
So well, speaking of like figuring out who you are as a person and what's important to you, I wanted to ask, so sometimes sometimes I'll like write a bunch of jokes, or I'll look back at all the material that I wrote and then realize that certain topics come up over and over again, and then discover things about myself that I didn't know were important to me. Has your work ever like illuminated something about yourself that you weren't aware of?
I probably should say yes, but not really.
Nice. No, good. You have the training. That's worth more. Am I saying that right? Sorry. You know exactly who you are. Yes.
No, I know. I feel like I know really, like, it's weird. I worked in politics before I started comedy.
Right.
And in politics, it's a lot of conversations and debate and, I don't know. And I think you can still work in politics as a professional and not have to like express your personal opinions, but like it's really hard not to. You kind of have to do that. And so that was the world I was living in, And so I think for me, making the leap into comedy was a huge decision that required a number of years of thought, And so it's like, what am I doing this for? So, so it was putting out a spreadsheet to figure out financially what I can afford to do if I were to quit my career. Like, so for me, I think it's a little different, say, than like other people who started at the same time as me, where maybe I wasn't 21, fresh out of college. I was like kind of already fairly formed as a human being,
Right.
And it was just a matter of like practicing and honing in. But like in terms of like anything that I realized, one of the things I realized was I really do care a lot about talking about, the challenges of growing up in my immigrant family. But, I think at the time I wasn't emotionally processed enough or I think craft-wise equipped to adequately address such a tough subject. I like to describe like, whenever people are like, is anything off limits, Jenny? Is anything off limits in comedy? And I'm always like, no, but you do have to understand there is an economy when it comes to comedy, and people are going to support you with their time, energy, or money. Or not. There's also the fact that as a craft, I see tough topics in comedy like they're radioactive materials. So if you really want to handle material that is radioactive or tougher to handle, you better be equipped. Get some fucking gloves. I hope you have some hermetically sealed fucking saran wrap on your body. You know what I mean? I don't know. Like, you need to have the tools to be equipped to handle the tougher things, or else it'll fall flat, or it'll just be straight up offensive and not funny, or it'll be hack or unoriginal. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, there's all these things that can happen. Yep. So yeah, like everything is up for grabs, to make fun of. But when things are tougher, whether for you personally or just it's a tough topic in general, then yeah, you're gonna have to like be even that much better of a joke writer and a comedian, I feel like, in order to do it justice. One of the things I did realize is that I wanted to talk about tougher subjects like depression or trauma or what have you, but it's been really tough for me to write about it or even make it funny, so I probably haven't talked about it much on stage. But this week there's just something in me that was just like, well, I'm gonna take a stab at how it feels right now to mourn a still living very old father. You know what I mean?
Wow, what an
not a positive relationship with.
What an interesting topic. That's just so. That's like so. There's so much there. Do you know what I mean? Like, I mean, I'm sure you can make it funny too, but what a complicated like emotion.
Well, this is gonna come out. This is gonna come out later, but right now I did post a video of that show that I did the night that we moved my dad out, because I didn't cancel. I just put up some video of like the 2 jokes I wrote for it, and I was just
good.
yeah, well, these are things I've felt forever, but it all solidified. They're not perfect jokes, by the way, but it all solidified for me in terms of me feeling like I was ready to say it in this way that night. And I think that's what happens sometimes. Like, you might be thinking about something for a while. I've attempted to talk about my dad in this way, but it basically I just said, my dad has dementia, and it was really hard living with my dad.
Right.
He thinks the world revolves around him. He loved like yelling at us, and he liked hitting people, and then he got dementia. You know what I mean? And then he got dementia. Like,
sorry.
You didn't have to laugh at that, but I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, but that was one of the jokes. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I've thought that. I've probably been thinking about that for a while, but it wasn't until Tuesday night that like I was like, oh, that's the joke then. I'm just gonna say that. You know what I mean? And maybe I'll improve on it or something. But that's the feeling.
He liked hitting people. I love that.
It happens, guys.
It happens. You get hit.
But ultimately, I'm kind of curious, like, what was it about comedy that like a career in politics just couldn't provide for you, that like moved the needle for you in that way?
Yeah, because in my head, I kind of almost see the two like itching the same scratching the same itch in a weird way, I guess they're
on what
different,
type of comedian you are, but you are very you use comedy in a very politically engaged way, and so I understand, like, once I learned that you had a career in politics prior to comedy, it wasn't surprising to me at all, because you synthesize it into your material. But ultimately, I guess, like, what was it about comedy that you just like, I need to do this? I can't. Working in politics, it's not going to fulfill me in the same way.
Yeah, I think, from a young age, I realized I wanted to see change in the world. I wanted to influence how the world works. And so politics was one way to do it. And then I realized, this whole time, by the way, starting in college, I started performing poetry. I wrote poetry since I was in the 5th grade to process my feelings, like everyone does. But it wasn't until college, as a form of community organizing with fellow students of color and queer students, we all would get together and perform. And I was like, oh, wow, you can perform this stuff. So that's what I started doing. And I continued doing it in LA. Actually, for a while in Los Angeles, I was known as a poet. Weird. Wow. No one knew that. Oh, yeah.
Wow.
I did gigs. Yeah. I'd never memorized it because my ass was lazy. I was like, I ain't taking this shit seriously. I like delighting people or making them cry. Let's fucking go. Right. So I used to perform, actually, poetry. And so, but I never thought of it as like anything serious, because I was working for the labor movement, or I was like working for a nonprofit. And so I think for me, what I realized was, I was a director at a really big multi-million-dollar budget labor union that had 5 offices, 250 staff, 85,000 members in Southern California. We represented public employees, your government workers, LA County, LA City, etc. And I was, there was a crop of us in our 20s and early 30s who were directors, like professionally trained to do everything, director of communications, everything. And I was making 6 figures, and I was just stressed out in a toxic work environment, just unhappy, working with a board of directors or like people above me who I would realize, I was like, I don't want to live their life. I don't look up to them anymore. That's not the future I want. And so, and the difference is, and so I tried comedy because I always knew I was funny, and people would tell me that because I performed poetry. And I finally was like, fuck it, I'm gonna respond to what the universe tells me, and then I said the 25th time someone said, you're like Margaret Cho, or you're so funny in conversation. I was like, oh, okay, you know what, fuck it, I'm gonna try stand-up comedy before the end of the year. And I did that. And I took improv class, and it helped me not to punch my coworkers in the face because I was so stressed out. Oh, you know what I mean? And I was like,
we all know that feeling
with comedy. Yeah, because in comedy, you get to represent only yourself. There's no one else. But in the work of politics that I did, whatever I said and the work that I did represented this huge organization.
Right.
I used to be essentially like I essentially used to be kind of like a lobbyist wearing like, just imagine me in my 20s just wearing like a suit with shoulder pads, just walking the halls of the LA
Wow.
County Hall of Administration, trying to be friends with the staffers of the Board of Supervisors and you know, writing public testimony for our member leaders so that we could influence them about some policy. And so, you know, I think for me, writing, working with groups of people, facilitating meetings, all of that was always like inside me. I just now have applied that energy and those skills to my career, which is why I've attributed my ability to have a career in comedy.
Wow.
You know, I've already won. You know, I've already made a living when I was touring colleges. You know what I mean?
Right.
Working in TV. Like I already won. I was like, hell yeah, I fucking pay my bills. My bills are not a lot, but I'm doing it. You know,
it's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's
so that's my long answer for that.
Well, that's like really interesting. I feel like, man, I just feel like the leap into I have to say this. I always say this whenever we have somebody on the show that's a comedian, and like it's part of a journey where you took like a risk, like moving away from like a more traditional life. I just want to say this. I know I always say this, Brian, but like that leap is the impossible leap. You know what I mean? Like I always told me and Brian we're like such losers and we're struggling, but like the leap, because I also did something similar where I took the leap when I was like, I'm gonna do a comedy.
Yeah.
I swear to God, 98% of people that want to don't do it, and it's like it's not nothing that we did that. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like
y'all did
even
it
for you.
Y'all did it.
Obviously for you, like that's not nothing. That is the impossible first step. That's
sure.
like the step that takes you from Earth to literally the moon. And then you're on the moon and you have rent due and no one thinks you're funny like me. And then you're like, now what? You know, but at least you're on the moon. You know what I'm saying? So I want to ask you, I have this question because your content, I think what you were saying in the beginning was like, oh, so I have a lot of different kind of content and material, but I am known for this specific like political Asian stuff. Have you ever felt that your material was too Asian, or if it was like maybe too niche, or has that ever crossed your mind? Or
I mean, it's crossed my mind only because I think for a while, up until very recently, working in Hollywood would pigeonhole you if you were to sort of focus too much on your ethnicity, you know?
Right.
I think like Mindy Kaling is a perfect example of whenever you read her, like you've read her interviews over the years about what it meant for her to succeed. So much of it was like, I used to realize that like I was going to be this abnormal, for lack of a better term, person, right? In all of these very white dude Harvard graduate comedy writers rooms or performance spaces, and I really had to double down and excel and maybe not even lean into my ethnicity because they don't understand, they don't care about that. White people don't care about that, you know. That was the attitude back then. And so I think when I started 10 years ago, I felt that, you know, even though I was like, I don't give a fuck. The Asian American community is what holds me down. That's like the community that the grassroots community organizations and friends who work in Asian American immigrant communities that were my friends. That like, so, you know, part of me was like, I know this might pigeonhole me, but this is who I am, and you know, it's what I care about. And so that's why I started an Asian American, like mostly women stand-up comedy tour, Disoriented Comedy, very early on when I started stand-up, because I was like, I don't care, I just want to be around the people that care about me. So I'm going to organize audiences, and I'm going to organize comedians. Eventually that turned into 4 years of doing an Asian American comedy festival, like the first of its kind, like, you know, and I would sell the shit out. Like for 5 straight years, I was like producing an LA show as well as a show around the country independently without any agents or whatever. And touring colleges and universities, just working my fucking butt off. And you know, people would be like, Jenny, we started stand-up comedy at the same time. How are you selling out these shows? And I was just like, yeah, well, you build a fucking young adult life of connections in a network of Asian Americans who care about the community. And then the moment you become a comedian, create a quality stand-up comedy show that features a diverse, funny cast of voices, they will show up and they will buy tickets. Like they will just, it's an underserved market. Like, you know, that's what you do. It's like, oh, okay, check, and check. Sure. That's the formula.
Yeah. I mean, we've experienced that too. I feel like we really like, I feel like our listeners and the people that come to our show, they've just been starved for something like this. And I think, I think people are sometimes like, our comedy friends are kind of like, how did this like happen? And we're like, I think they just wanted to hear Asians make jokes or something. I don't know. Like they wanted it. So we did it. So yeah, it's like, it's interesting. It's so weird when people ask that too.
And, you know, I was around too in 2013 when BuzzFeed Video started. And so I happened to know someone who's one of the first director producers, the first four. And that's when they kind of converted from making listicles into like videos, videos. And I was a part of that boom where there was a lot of like Asian American identity conversations and videos that went viral. And that actually helped me to get a lot of college and university gigs around that time. And so, you know, I think in terms of like, since then, people know very much this is her brand and she can do these things. That Jenny's very capable of talking about identity. She's very capable of opining about politics. So right before the pandemic, you know, not that I'm shunning it, but I was like, I want to give people a fuller picture of what I'm capable of. So I said, I'm gonna create a live comedy show and experiment with this. That's not Asian specific. That's not political specific. But in the end, it's all infused because that's just who I am. And so I created a show called Everything's Fine with Jenny Yang. I called it a competitive self-care comedy show because I'm obsessed with like the wellness industry, the wellness and beauty industrial complex. I like making fun of it. I've benefit from it, but it's like so whack in so many ways. It's very culturally appropriative in so many ways. There's like such like rich histories based off of like non-white or indigenous cultures. And so I was like, I want to do a comedy show that's live, that's a variety show that has guests who work in wellness or whatever, or comedians, and let's like have a fun time live. And then the pandemic happened.
Right. What are we gonna do?
No, but I just want to take a moment and say that I think it's really fucking hard to do what you've done, and I've always admired you from afar because you're irreverent and you take no prisoners, no bullshit. You just get on the ground level and you just make shit happen. And I think that you're a great role model for other people who are like looking to carve a path for themselves in this career, because early on in my like comedy pursuits, you know, I remember hanging out with other Asian American comedians in New York, and we'd just be like, damn, I wish I could be booked on this show, or like just sort of waiting and dawdling. Like, I'm going to get together my material, and then once I get that opportunity, I'm going to crush it. But sometimes that opportunity just never happens, whether it's you're not funny enough, but there's also other variables that are outside of the realm of just being funny. It's like you don't 100%. You don't look a certain way, and that's why you're not even going to be given that chance.
Yep.
And you know, that's
or
why
you
I'm
don't
really
do the same
grateful.
Drugs.
Right, exactly. And so that's why I'm glad we created this podcast. And, you know, my friend who I had this conversation with, it's all about just creating your own platforms. And if you're just passionate about it, that's the way to do it.
That's the way. Also, I just want to say, Jenny, that drug thing is not an issue for me because I do all the drugs. So it's an issue of the wrong kind of drug. I've never experienced that. I'm like, what are you guys doing over here? I will join you. Can I be on your show? But yeah, thanks, Brian. Yeah, you're right, Brian. I like, you know, Jenny, you were doing this in LA, you know, years before we were. But I think, you know, we sort of all came to the same realization that there maybe, yes, there is a lack of space, maybe not so much now, but actually yes, for people that look like us, for our material. But then that just means you have to create it, and there is an audience that they just want it. Like that's why the shows are popular. There's a huge audience, and there's an industry that is for some reason just very hesitant to make room for us. So we'll just have to do it on our own, you know.
Right.
Yeah. And I love it. I mean, I've been wanting to start my own podcast forever, but you know, I got distracted with all these other things. But that's why I love that you guys are doing Feeling Asian. I mean, you're going to do my New York show.
I am.
Yummy. And
it's coming out the day that this episode comes out. The show is tonight. No way. Yeah, so if you're listening to this episode, the show is tonight, the 20th, at Union Hall.
Yeah, and
sold
there
out,
might be
so you
last
can't
minute.
really
so
watch
you
it.
can't
So
go.
I know,
Already
no, but
sold
there's some
out, so.
there might be some last minute no shows, and you can get tickets at the door. But also, Mike
That is
Nguyen
true.
is going to be one of the people that performs with me, and I just love that, like, Asian Not Asian podcast, Feeling Asian podcast. I love what y'all are doing. You know?
Oh, thank you.
Oh, thank you. Well, Jenny,
Yeah.
I have this fun question for you, and it is
Yeah.
in 2017, you said Asians, if we just took our foodie culture energy and just channel that shit into actual town hall meetings and politics, like, you don't understand, we'd be powerful. Now, do you think Yelp and Infatuation still have a vice grip on Asian American culture today in 2021?
Death grip. Yelp has a death grip. I haven't been keeping up with Yelp, but my God, they have a chokehold on the Asian community. Or does the Asian community have a chokehold on Yelp?
Now, 4 years later, how are we doing?
I don't know. I feel like I'm a little out of touch with the Yelp community 4
Me
years
too.
later, but I do know that, like, back then when I wrote that, I did a lot of content about, like, food. I did some, like, videos of my own that, like, would, like, talk back to any kind of cultural appropriation that was happening in food media, because it's like, to me, I'm, you know, I love our people's food. I grew up on it. I take pride in
Yeah.
it. It's one of the few things that mainstream pop culture understands about Asians is our food.
Yeah,
You know, as a
that's a
point
good
of
point.
reference, right? Like kung fu, food. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's like their main references. And so I felt very like I want to say something about it. And so and I used to be early elite, early Yelp elite commenting.
Wow.
And so I just was like, man, when there's food news that was like, yo, that white chef from Philadelphia has a whack ass Bon Appetit video talking about his expertise in pho.
Oh my God.
You know, man, oh my
Never
God,
forget.
so many people rose the fuck up. Do you know how many
Yeah.
like Vietnamese points I got because I made a video making fun of that? Like, so I felt the energy,
Right.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
of Asians who would show up, you know, being like, no, that's wrong. Don't fucking besmirch our sacred food, our food practices. You know what I mean? And so
these white chefs be besmirching.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
They're out here
They
besmirching.
besmirch all the time. And so that energy, I saw it firsthand. And I was like,
Yeah.
man, we need to channel that shit. We need that indignance, that like protectiveness, that's offensiveness. We need to, you know, voice that for other things that actually really truly affect our lives, like healthcare and
Yeah.
like childcare and wages, live like, you know, the fucking minimum wage, like all of this stuff, climate change, like, but we haven't done that. We haven't truly converted that. I feel like some of it did. I think when Obama was elected, there was a surge. And then when Trump was elected, there was a surge of like interest and like, you have to take a position. It kind of forced people to have to take a position on things that were happening in the world that weren't just your immediate life. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, why does that always get, that really gets in our craw as Asians? 'Cause I get fucking upset whenever white people do fucked up shit to Asian food. Way more
Yeah.
upset than climate change, and I don't know why that is. Like, what's going on
It's
with
true.
me and my mental health state that I'm like, fuck that guy, he put kimchi on mac and cheese, what the fuck? And then I'm like, the
Yeah.
earth is gonna be uninhabitable in 10 years. That's, you know, whatever.
It's just how we're socialized. It's just how we're socialized.
Yeah,
Do you
it's
remember
true.
Nigel
Yeah, yeah.
Ng? Uncle, I forgot his name.
Uncle-
Uncle whatever. Nigel Ng.
Yeah.
Oh, the comedian?
Uncle
the comedian
Roger.
who does
Uncle
Uncle Roger.
Roger.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh my God, with his orange like polo shirt. Remember
Yes.
he
Yeah.
went viral because he made fun of someone who made rice incorrectly. Oh my God. I was
Yeah.
cackling. I was feeling that. I was like, yes, speak on it, Uncle Roger. You know? Don't
yeah.
don't disrespect our rice.
Right.
That's
how I
right.
felt. Yeah.
Right.
Oh my god, my blood started boiling. I remember the person that cleaned their rice by adding dish soap. Oh my god, I can't.
No.
I know. This is what was
See?
really important. Who cares about, you know, billionaires not being taxed?
Yeah. I
Exactly.
don't know.
I'm just kidding.
If my Amazon package gets to me in 20 hours, then I'm happy about Bezos. You know what I mean? That's how that feeling
Then
is.
that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't really know the video you guys are referencing because I'm just too busy worrying about like the sea level rising and stuff. So
Oh, wow.
I'm just
wow.
I feel like I'm
Wow,
6'1".
Brian.
I'm 6'1", by the way.
No, I am
Wow,
100. I am
Brian.
100% on the same wavelength. I love that freaking
Well,
video.
that's
But
just-
I do
that's
wanna
human nature.
However, I do
Human
want to be. I'm optimistic though, because I talked about this on the podcast when it happened, but when during the times of the when the Atlanta shooting happened in New York, there was that Asian American there was a rally,
Yeah.
and we went to it, and
It's great.
Oh, nice.
yeah, and I'll admit it. For most of my life, I've just not been very politically engaged because I have the privilege to not have to be politically engaged. And
Right.
I would say in the last 5 years or so is when I really started to tap in and stay current and just read and stay educated and informed on what's going on. And I think there is a huge coalition of Asian Americans, much like
Yeah.
me, that, we are like banding together and realizing that
Yeah.
having a voice in politics is real power in this country.
Mm-hmm.
And it starts at the local level.
I love it. I feel like
Yeah.
George Floyd Jr.'s murder highlighted the need to really know who you are and how to be in solidarity with others.
Right. And I feel like all the and then after that all the the Stop Asian Hate stuff like that. But also I want to point out what Jenny was saying. We could go beyond just our personal communities, and we should just care about just everything else.
Yeah.
Besides the pho recipe on Bone app, that we're gonna kill them for that.
Oh, no, that was.
Never forget. Never forget. Never. That's our 9/11. Sorry, that was terrible.
No, no, it wasn't.
I don't mean that. I don't mean that. But
No,
I
I think you're qualified enough. You can handle. That's radioactive material. You can handle
Oh,
it.
really? No, that was bad. That was not.
She's equipped. She's equipped.
You're equipped. You're equipped, young me.
Well, before we let you go, Jenny, can we ask you the last question? What is something that you are proud of?
Something that I'm proud of. I'm proud of getting my ass out for this tour.
Yes.
I'm so tired, guys. I didn't have to do this tour, this little mini tour. It kicks off with you, right, in New York. And then the
Right.
next day, if you have any listeners in Boston, come
Wow.
through Thursday, the 21st. This is my plug. All
Yeah,
right,
just
basically.
Absolutely.
This is my
Plug all your tour dates.
Plug away.
So Wednesday,
like, I was
20th in New York, 21st in Boston.
23rd and then 22nd and 23rd, 4 shows in Vermont. So
Wow.
you know what? This is truly, I'm excited to get the, Feeling Asian bump. The
Jenny.
Northeast Feeling Asian bump. You know what
Jenny,
I mean?
we have a listener in Vermont, and she drove down for our live show. So if this person, I think she said Vermont. So if you're listening, 22nd, 23rd, check out Jenny Yang.
Oh my God. If you're in, you know what?
Yeah.
I want to see that level of dedication in my fandom. Okay. I want to see people who couldn't get a ticket in New York drive their asses out to Vermont.
Wow. I was like, wow, really? I felt like so honored.
I love
so you're-
that.
yeah,
But no,
so
I
you're-
am proud of that. I'm proud that I said yes to doing this mini tour, even though I could be laying on my ass, eating popcorn and seaweed. I don't know why I gave that combination.
Yum.
I was like, damn, that sounds good.
That sounds good. Well, I'm sure that everyone is very excited that you decided to do the tour because you're sold out in New York. I'm sure your shows are gonna be popping, and they're all so excited to see you.
You're so positive and nice, young me.
I mean, that's just the truth.
It is true.
It makes me shy. It makes me shy.
Oh.
Okay, so I guess you did plug your tour. Where can our listeners find you on social media?
I am always online on Twitter and Instagram at Jenny Yang TV. Y'all are inspiring me to do more on TikTok because my ass is just like not touch that shit. There's like one video at the beginning of pandemic that I put up of me learning the choreo of that Tinashe was doing, but truly other than that, I want to get on TikTok. But everything at Jenny Yang TV.
Okay, Jenny
It's a
Yang
what?
TV. It's a hell app. More so than other apps somehow. Rotting my brain.
Yeah, don't read the comments. Just post.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
live
there's
your life.
always going to be a million negative comments no matter what you do.
Yeah.
How about so Brian, where can we find you on TikTok and social media?
You guys can find me on socials at It's Brian Park. And what about you, young me?
YM Mayor and TikTok is Young Me Mayor. You can follow our podcast on Instagram at Feeling Asian Podcast, on YouTube, on TikTok. and patreon.com/feelingasian.
Yeah. And once again, everyone, listeners, go follow Jenny at Jenny Yang TV. Check out her tour dates. If she's in your city, freaking buy a ticket.
Just do it.
Just do it.
Go to my website, jennyyang.tv, and sign up for my email list. I'm always on there.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Go do that. Even better. Thanks, Jenny.
Thanks, Jenny.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.